half elven, half human, but also half angel, half demon. And both the goddess and untamed devil will move heaven and hell to make Niobe their champion.
Hello, Stranger Family. Welcome to the Stranger Comics Patreon. Thank you so much for stopping by. All right, so why Patreon? Over the years, we've been kind of growing our community through Kickstarters and conventions and live streams. We felt this was kind of the next evolution. We want to be able to give you guys awesome stuff each month, like Patreon exclusive rare comic books and original art and merch, and we can have online fireside chats and so much more. Plus, we want to give you the access to get our entire catalog and get to know when we're dropping something new each month right here on Patreon with you guys, the fans, who become more like our Stranger family. If you're not familiar with us, Stranger Comics was born out of us wanting to tell stories in very colorful worlds like Niobe's Asunder, but with tales that really reflect the human spirit. With the world divided, who do you turn to? If this is the end, who will you be? That is the question that we pose to our franchise hero Niobe and to you, the reader. We want our books to resonate in ways that make you feel seen and heard. And we kind of want to plant seeds for you to water so that you can become the hero of the story in your life. We play with themes that we can all relate to. Redemption, obligation versus free will, love and pain, and second chances. Do we feel like we deserve them? And our struggles with our lack of faith in humanity or our hope for a better world against the backdrop of fantastical landscapes. We have managed to work with incredible artists who have helped translate this vision. But honestly, we couldn't have done this without you guys. So I couldn't be more honored and humbled and excited that you're here. Hopefully you find a Patreon level you like, and please spread the word. Much love, and see you at a convention or on our Patreon Discord soon.
Welcome to the Gen X meetup and conference. I hope you are having a great time. The moment that you all have been waiting for is upon us. I'm so happy to have this amazing guest coming on. We are recording this because he is currently doing his Stranger Con, which is actually happening around the same time. So he was gracious enough to jump on and say, yes, let's record, let's put ourselves out there. And I definitely wanted to make sure that you all got to meet the most amazing creator that we have out there. Sebastian Jones is the owner and president of Stranger Comics. He has been involved in entertainment since an early age in England. After having left for America at 18 years old, such a strapping young lad went and he founded the critically acclaimed MVP Records, globally releasing 25 albums over several years that included such artists as James Brown, John Coltrane, Marvin Gaye, Billie Holiday, and the list goes on with the client list, including EMI, Capitol, Sony, Warner Brothers, BMG, and Universal. Those are the big hitters, y'all. He transitioned from music to movies, and when he collaborated with filmmakers, the Polish brothers, Twin Falls, Idaho, Norfolk, as well as starring in scores of national commercials. Jones wrote and directed the comedy pilot Cast Off, starring Scoot McNairy, also well known in Argo, 12 Years a Slave, and Scott Adsit, Big Hero 6, 30 Rock. He then transitioned to feature writing and adapted several of his stories into comics and children's books when he founded Stranger Comics and children's division Stranger Kids. Jones now spends his time publishing, writing, and teaching. And if you haven't seen his Stranger Cons, please make sure that you jump on at some point. Maybe you're doing it as we speak and you're double dutying on both cons. So the art of the story is what he teaches and he's been writing about, and how to turn an idea from concept to creation without selling your soul to universities around the world. So he does a lot of public speaking. We have him here today. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Sebastian Jones. How are you, my friend?
Wow, that's an amazing introduction. Wow, thank you. The strapping young lad. I love that. I like to be strapped. I don't know. Stop. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, listen, I've been really a huge fan of yours for quite a long time. And I know we've been talking, through the virtual space, but I really wanted to have you a part of our conference, by hell or high water. So I'm so glad that you were able to get with us today and just hang out with us for, the next 30 to 45 minutes. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Appreciate you. And shout out to everyone on the Gen X Con, Hey there.
Cool. So, Sebastian, we're just going to jump right in on it. I definitely want to have most of the time to talk about who you are. That's really important to me because I think when we talk about the space that we occupy in the comic book industry, and even as just fans or even in the industry, we don't really know the persons unless we really dive deep into them. So I want you to tell me about yourself, your upbringing, and what was it like growing up, and what were some key memories about, your childhood or maybe even, young adulthood where there are first touch points for you and kind of looking at comic books or even the industry at large?
Yeah. Thank you. So I grew up in England. I grew up in a county called Surrey, which is kind of borders London. It's born in Wimbledon, which is kind of like nestled between Surrey and London. Had a good childhood, great family, great group of friends. I would say, pretty suburban-y, village-y kind of thing, but we moved quite a little bit. We could move quite a lot, like every 3 years or so. It felt like my family were moving. I think, it was in relation to comics. I remember first being drawn to the Incredible Hulk. I mean, he was kind of my guy. I still am a very, very skinny dude. I was a very skinny dude. And I think I was a skinny mixed kid growing up in a predominantly kind of white neighborhood. And I think dealt with some bullying stuff by teachers. It wasn't uncommon for me to walk in the classroom and there was a picture of me on the chalkboard all colored in with all the various racial, slurs hurled. And so I think it was, I found myself diving into this comic world, hiding within it, but then also finding my sense of self. And I also ended up finding I had a bad temper. So I was quick to fight back, or quick to anger, I guess. And so I very much identify with the whole Banner turning into the Hulk kind of gig. I just wanted to be left alone, just to, do my thing. And I guess what's the fuck around and find out, as a young boy. And my dad was pretty hard on me in those areas too. So I don't know if I was as aggressive as he was, but he made me feel if I didn't live up to his expectations of what a man was, I was less than. So it always kind of stuck with me too, which I don't necessarily agree with. I felt too much pressure, I think, in certain areas like that. Now I'm a dad, and I kind of, take the foot off the gas a little bit against that fine line. So comics that really got to me were The Incredible Hulk, the X-Men. I was a big Wolverine and Storm head. Black Panther, I was a big T'Challa dude. But I think those three kind of comics, for the most part, kind of just really. I love the classics, Spidey. I hated Thor. I hated Thor. I don't know. I think it's because he fought the Hulk a lot, and it was always like, oh man, are they going to have Thor beat who's writing it this week? And the comic that probably changed my perspective of storytelling was This Man, This Monster, the classic Fantastic Four issue. I think that, and there was a Hulk issue in which I think it was Sam Wilson's nephew got AIDS, and whether or not he wanted the Hulk's blood to try and cure him.
Wow.
And I remember but if he did and he became another Hulk, he could be another monster. And so it was all these kind of moral debates. I was like, holy shit, these moral dilemmas are fascinating, crazy.
Yeah.
And then I remember that in those Marvel, you could people would write their reviews of what they liked or didn't like about the previous issue. And it was really heavy. It was really heavy. And then half the people who obviously had HIV and suffering had said that they were really mad that they didn't cure, use the Hulk serum and give hope and so on. And then the other half were very thankful to not paint a full sense of reality. So I remember that these, some of those things were just so impactful to me as a young lad. And in the same space, I was very into fantasy. So I was a big D&D head, played a lot of D&D and a lot of Warhammer gaming, a lot of live action role playing. In fact, let me see if I've got, here, look, here's one of the swords as I quickly escape. And here is a live action role playing sword made by Calamasil. They make our characters live action role playing cosplay weapons. This is Assessor's Unholy Vampire Sword. So kind of crazy years later, I'm making comics and still playing with LARP weapons.
That's a cool weapon.
It's pretty awesome, to be honest. These are full on. You can have full on fights with these bad boys. And got a Naivi one as well with the runes and everything. So there was that. I think so. My influences or inspirations were comics, fantasy novels, and in cinema I was into Sergio Leone and Akira Kurosawa. Those were kind of like probably the most, probably what I was inspired by the most. Kurosawa, Sergio Leone, and then Scorsese, Spike Lee. There's a few other kind of key filmmakers that I think really impacted my storytelling the most. And then I would say, more than anything, without rambling, I'm a 90s hip hop head, so I then delved into funk and soul, jazz and blues. And I would say if there was any kind of inspiration, more than anything, into the way I kind of do my shit is music. So, and I ran a record label, as you touched on, for a number of years. So the music is heavily influenced and into the comics I write. So that was it. Certain key moments in my life, few punch-ups, few broken hearts, me being the one with a broken heart, and a big trip at the age of 18 from England to America when I moved here by myself.
Wow.
And and the juxtaposition too, and as I touched on earlier, I grew up in that kind of neighborhood, but my mom, she grew up in the projects in Clapham Council Estates. So I would see my grandmother fairly regularly, pretty much a lot of weekends. and then I would see the experience kind of the extremities of there's the hood, there's the projects, and here is suburban life. And then when I moved to America, I think I experienced those two extremes as well in a very visceral way.
You know, it's funny, as I was listening to you, completely connected with that whole just being in the limbo area, especially racially and ethnically, where I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where you either had to pick black or white, and there was no in between. And so I was neither one, but I connected mostly with my community, except I lived on the border between the haves and have-nots. I lived in the brownstones that were north of us, where Spike Lee and our more affluent folks lived in these huge brownstones. They weren't worth as much as they are now back in the 80s and 90s. And then you had the projects, to the south of us. And, I lived on Myrtle Avenue, AKA Murder Avenue, which was really an interesting thing. But, I really tapped into your story about the Hulk piece. I was a skinny kid too. And I was just like, oh gosh, and ended up, in the same situation of whether you do fight or flight type of situation, and the whole idea about masculinity and, but a lot of my friends, they went a different route, and I didn't. My mom, she would have whooped me if I had gone that route, for sure. But there were so many different, like when you were talking about some of the nuanced pieces of societal like pressures, especially for young kids, and even now, so they have much more access to a lot of it and more influence. But I just wanted to say thanks for sharing that, because I think that connects with a lot of folks, or at least gives an opening, even historically, that it's still happening to this day. These are the things that are still happening to kids in all types of communities, in particular those who are trying to fit in. So comic books really is a gateway to getting folks kind of to have a self-identity, and hopefully they meet each other, right, at a con or something like that, or they live out their dreams, and have their own company. So, I wanted to talk to you about the industries, because you jump from like the music industry and that influence, and then also the comic book industry. We're actually having guests later on who fuses, they're called Shaolin Jazz, and they actually remix soundtracks of movies. Awesome. So they actually show movies and remix them live, and they actually do it pretty well. It's pretty cool. But we sometimes forget about that fusion of those worlds, especially, hip hop, and also comic book. You touched upon a little bit about that, but I own one of your Dead Presidents covers.
Oh, you're the Dead Prez. Yeah, man.
And so anyway, I just wanted to maybe talk about a little bit about that, and how that, how you see that world, because you did fuse that in your own company currently. Yes.
This is the new exclusive. You got the Outcast one right here. And we have Tribe Called Quest. We got Biggie. We got Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu. Yeah, I think it's, and then actually, and the other one too is dropping is the TLC. Wow. Which is super fun, because we have a very famous comic called The Waterfall. So I was like, okay, let me do a waterfall homage. And these are not bagged and boarded. Those are my comics I can show for the collectors out there. Don't have a heart attack, So yeah, I think the music industry, it definitely kind of sharpened, got my sense of sharpened for any kind of business. It's one of those things where I think I got into the music industry because it's what moved me, right? It's like kind of what nourished my soul. And when I was heartbroken or angry, or I've always liked music's meant to make you want to fight, fuck, or fall in love. Otherwise, what's it doing? And so I felt like, let me be in the music industry. And then I think it was a hard slap in the face to kind of realize that sometimes the industry that you want to be in is the one that you're going to, I want to say hate. It's a love-hate. But it's gonna hurt you. And then how do you separate? It's like what they talk about the carpenter who goes home to a broken home, because he's like, I can't can't handle going home because I'm out there making everyone else's world pretty. I mean, it's not really the right analogy, but anyway, I think is that it's a dangerous. It was a hard gut check for me to enter the industry of music, release kind of the music that I wanted to release, and then deal with some of the more vapid personalities that were in that industry. And but it hardened me, and it taught me it definitely cut my teeth on that industry, how to make a product, how to sell a product, how to navigate, contracts, how to navigate the street hustle, all the things, how to talk to people. So here's the crazy shit is when I wound down my record label, I was like, I don't want to run another business. It was very draining. Mm-hmm. And I was going through some personal shit at the time. I was like, I just want to write and create. I love doing liner notes. I like telling stories of D&D. I like all that shit. And I've been creating this fantasy world since I was a kid, since I was like a teenage boy. And I was like, oh, maybe I could write comic books. That's another love of mine, right? I've done the music thing. Now let me do this thing. I guess it's the only thing I kind of know what to do because I kind of didn't do well at school. So here I am writing comics, and I have some ideas, and I pitch these ideas to several of the top comic companies, like literally just like anyone would, to go to a convention, try and have a meeting, try and have a pitch, and became buddies with a producer, and he ended up seemingly wanting to, me not realizing at the time, would kind of, potentially use my brain, my storytelling ability for his advantage, and maybe I could learn from him. But I didn't realize what I was bringing to the table. I was like just happy to be part of something new and so on. So anyway, long story short is I shopped around these ideas, and this was probably the most famous one that we have, this Niobe comic here. Mm-hmm. But it all started in this book, The Untamed. These are the trade paperback versions of them, mm-hmm. right? The Hero in the Hand of the Devil, where you first meet Niobe. Anyway, I shopped these ideas around, and I was like, holy shit, more vapid personalities. And a lot of some were really cool, actually, a few were really cool. But for the most part, they saw what I was bringing to the table. Literally, it was like you would hear, oh, this would look good during a Black History Month announcement. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to start a company just to protect the integrity of this girl, this vision, these characters, So everybody kind of had seen the stuff that I was showing and gone immediately to the surface, kind of the clickable thing, like without diving into the story, not wanting to know the characters. It was just a hashtag or a please the shareholders type shit. And I was like, I can't fuck with that at all. So try to raise money. And every investor was like, you're doing comics? Ooh. And then, oh, okay, maybe. And the ones that were kind of semi-interested for the most part were, oh, you're doing fantasy comics. That doesn't sell in comics. Oh, you're doing comics that are primarily black and brown. That doesn't sell in comics.
Wow.
Oh, you're doing female is your lead character, your lead off. That doesn't sell either. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all three.
Yeah.
And I had a script at the time, a movie script, and a couple of producers were like, oh, they were kind of interested in it, in The Untamed, and they were like, but if you have to make Niobe a white boy, or we can't really fuck with it. And I was like, and I'm broke. Yeah, I'm not doing well financially, right? Things are hard. And I'm like, do you take the check so you can pay your bills and survive, like eat food and shit? Or do you hold on to your morals? And then you juggle the morality of going, do I have good morals if I can't take care of my son well? how do you weigh your morals, really, right? Yeah. So I never really judge too many people, even because you just don't know what the fuck they're going through. So anyway, long story short, of course, I went the hard route and was like, I'm going to do all this shit on my own, and I'm going to, I'm not, we're indie. We're not those other indies that are like, they're independent, but they got the good dough.
Yeah, they got the money.
They got some dough, some more than others. And no knock or shade or anybody, just shout out to anyone that's, working hard and doing good content, however you get it. But yeah, this is, literally we started then with, and a couple of companies really wanted it, and they were very, very predatory. They were fucking dickheads. So shout out to those guys.
Look at me now, right?
I mean, I guess, but just thanking that, without them being so predatory and ruthless and mean, they don't say shit to you at the con, but without them, there wouldn't be Stranger Comics.
That's right. So speaking of which, talk to us about the creation of Stranger Comics, because you kind of alluded to like that side, but what was you kind of decided to go the hard route and create Stranger Comics. For those who don't know what Stranger Comics is and the universe, could you elaborate a little bit about all the characters?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stranger Comics, primarily is known for the fantasy world of Asunder. The fantasy world of Asunder is basically, it's been with me since I was a kid, like I was saying, and the main character is this half elven girl, Niobe, this girl right here. And I think when I was a kid, I poured all of my vulnerabilities and my fears, or my wrath onto her winged shoulders. And as I kind of grew, she grew with me. So by the time I started Stranger, I had a pretty fleshed out world and different characters and things. But the first book is this book, The Untamed. And I was going through some shit, and I thought, how can I not do they're off to save the princess, or these big kind of these giant exploratory quests. How can I do stories that relate to us as people, our vulnerabilities, our own trials and tribulations? And so it all started in this book right here. And this is a story about a man who's stuck in purgatory. My first introduction is The Untamed. This is a story of a man who's stuck in purgatory, and after 10 years, the devil comes along and he says, I'll give you 7 days to reap the 7 souls that murdered you and your family.
Wow.
The guy says, sign me up. He takes a drifter's return to a one-horse town in a huge world. As his memory comes back in broken shards, he realized when he was alive, he was a bad man and maybe deserved to die, but now he's back to save his family. On his path of vengeance to save their soul, he meets a little elven girl called Niobe. And she reminds him of how old his murdered daughter would have been given this man a second chance to be a good man or a father, but he only has 7 days. The kicker is, what if she's one of the 7 souls he has to collect?
Wow.
And the devil set the whole thing up just to find her. Would you damn your family to save the world? Because if Niobe can stay alive in The Untamed, a sinner's prayer, 7 days, 7 souls, 7 issues. We spent nearly 10 years painting this with Peter Bergting, who does a lot of Harry Potter stuff. If Niobe can stay alive in The Untamed, she will grow up to become our world's Luke Skywalker-y face of the franchise. So that's The Untamed. That's the introduction, like a spaghetti western-y kind of vibe, one-horse town. It contains stories, second chances. We all need a bit of redemption. We all need some salvation. What would you do to get it?
That's pretty badass. I'm not going to lie. Like, so that's the other part. I think of Robin Williams, and he talks about having that, making sure that you keep that spark of kind of like that between insanity and like, and the normalcy of the world. But
this is what we did with Niobe too. She ends up realizing Niobe's mix. She's half elven, half human, half angel, half demon, to reflect the duality of spirit we all share. So as this devil's guy is out to find to do his deed to save his family, he's also bringing her new truths and things. So this is I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah, that's gorgeous.
That is the duality of Niobe that I think is like the angel and devil on your shoulder, right?
Yep.
Who are you going to be? These are on our beautiful kind of Kickstarter, our beautiful oversized hardcovers we have as well. So that's the other thing I should say too is, without sounding like some freaking obnoxious dickhead, is I wanted, if you were to buy a Stranger Comics property, whether it's one of our kids' books or our hardcovers or our trade paperbacks or our exclusive, you're going to get quality, whether it's the story, the art, the presentation. And so I modeled it after 3 companies, HBO, Taschen, and Blue Note. So you got Blue Note for its design aesthetic, Taschen for its beautiful, bound books and things you feel like you can put on your coffee table, and HBO for the quality of the narrative. And because I figured kids, if they've only got $4, right, they go to a con, they go to a comic shop, they've got $4 in their pocket or 20 for a trade or some shit, and they know what they're going to buy already. They're going to get Spidey or something, one of the big 2, or an indie that they know or something. They know what they're getting. And it's $20 is expensive nowadays. Times are really tough, the whole 9. So if someone is going to take a risk on me, I have to honor the person that's going to risk their money as well. I really have to do everything I can to pour my soul into the hopeful moment that they're going to read this shit and have a real honest connection, whether it's just the art, they think my writing sucks, cool. Or if it's the writing, that they like it both, great. But it is that. And I think what has happened is you get some comics that really are great at, really the story and the presentation. You really tell how they take the time. And other ones that are just kind of quick and fun and lighter and so on. But it's part of the machine. And in today's society, folks are distracted with, you've got apps on your TikTok, on your Instagram, you've got multiple comics coming out, TV shows, movies, you're in Spotify, all the things. You've got so many shiny objects. We've become completely spoiled with billion-dollar type movies, explosions, costumes, and all the rest of it. And it's easy to become desensitized by it. So with our shit, what I try and do is, hopefully the piece of art speaks to you and you read it, and then we force you to slow down and slow down and read, and then hopefully, so that's my approach. I don't know if it's a good approach or not, but I just want people to enjoy it. So anyway, I'll shut up now.
Well, I think the first time I saw you and I was on one of your streams, I said to myself, I have to support this brother because the quality's there, the book, it was just gorgeous. I couldn't wait to get it into my hands. And then, I had the signed copies and I was just like hooked. And then even the Tahani Farr, her artwork on your stuff was like, whoa, how I need to get everything there. And I know that she's an artist that's coming back to kind of support. So yeah, I got to see that, which is awesome. Y'all got to support this brother. It is a great cover, and the story is just amazing. So we were just cutting it up for a little bit, but these are the ones that, folks have been really clamoring for. Tahani, if you're not following Tahani Farr on Instagram, you get to see all her work. She's very active on Instagram, as is Sebastian. Your Sebastian's all over.
Surprise too, for folks that are the hardcore fans.
Whoa, the homage.
Yeah, there you go. So we do stuff, music culture, the comic culture, all sorts of fun stuff. This is the new ones. We have great stuff. This is here's some other fun stuff I didn't even realize, but don't have many of these left.
Assessa.
Yeah, the Walking Dead homage. The Michonne.
That's awesome.
And this one just dropped. We did 75 of these.
Vast art. Yeah, I saw that online and I was like, whoa, I'm going to be broke after this is all said and done. Well, the other thing that you brought up, which I think I don't want anybody to miss out, is this whole idea of representation and not necessarily, talking about the moralistic piece of the business and like kind of the jacked up parts, the corporate feel for it. So I know you've been able to, stay true, and I know that the success that you've seen has been because you stuck so close to, your identities and what you think are morally just. So I wanted to ask you about representation now in the industry, what your thoughts are around it, but also do you think that we're in the right direction, or are we stalled? I know people were going crazy about, the new Black Panther and Namor and the change in his story, but I kind of thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, your thoughts around that and the representation and where we're headed.
Yeah, 100%. Look, quick backstory. When we did this, I wrote this one here with Amanda Stenberg. So you guys might know her. She played Rue in the Hunger Games. She's the new Acolyte in the new Star Wars franchise. And Ashley Woods, we found her. We gave, so out of Chicago. This became the first in history, first nationally distributed comic book in history with a Black female author, artist, and hero. So before us, this hadn't been done, which is very sad and crazy to think, because then a few years later, Black Panther comes out. So I think money talks, but the people that are controlling the narrative don't often figure it out in the ways that they could. I believe that in the reality of representation, I think historically you can look contextually as far as civil rights. You can go back however long you want to go back, women's rights, all sorts of things. That there's always a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Suddenly there's 2 steps back, and then we get back on track, right? So we're in a moment where I feel that there's a identity crisis for a lot of people. And so if you look at, like, let's say that the Black Lives Matter movement was extremely needed and important, and people kind of miss some people miss kind of the reality of, like, if I can say, if I said fuck cancer, no one's gonna be like, well, what about the rest of the diseases? If we can say fuck it, no one's gonna trip. Well, let's save the rainforest. Well, wait a minute, there are lots of forests to say, no one's tripping. But I think when it comes to cultural identity, people get hit in the feels with the what about me? Mm-hmm. And I think just this, well, what about me? I'm a person, I'm human, I have feelings and so on. And I think one group of people have been coddled for a long time without subconsciously not realizing. So suddenly, if the attention is on the other kid or the other group of folks, then suddenly it's like, well, wait a minute, what about me? I'm used to the spotlight. So I think it's sometimes a bit of a pushback. Folks that don't agree, that's fine too. I could be wrong. I don't really care about being wrong. I don't have which I think is another thing, which is a very inherently kind of not American, but Western, or just people in general, I think, don't want to be wrong, and they tend to double down. Is if you're afraid of being wrong, then you can't necessarily learn and grow. I love being wrong. It's just, I'm like, well, then teach me. I could be completely wrong about all this shit. But however, what I feel is probably, with my experiences as someone who's mixed, who has experienced being called every kind of racist name and being called a white boy, but like the gambit, which is kind of adorable. I would say that comic books like Star Wars and The Lord of the Rings and various things help bond a person at key impactful moments in their life. So let's say for Lord of the Rings, a kid's getting bullied and he found himself in Middle Earth, right? Like, I can be an elven warrior. I could be this person. I could be this. I could be this. Oh, I've got this. This is me. This is me. This is who I am. And I'm culturally identifying with this character. I'm culturally identifying with Superman, with a Christian narrative. I'm culturally identifying with Luke Skywalker. He is me, and he represents who I am. James Bond, whatever it is. And if that person doesn't have potentially the context or awareness to say, well, to go like, yes, and black people, they have this, or brown people, they have this, and we all have our things, and it's suddenly like, wait a minute, you're coming away and you want to play in my sandbox. Suddenly I'm feeling intimidated or angry, or that's not right, without kind of understanding that, a young 5-year-old or 7-year-old person, or the parent of that kid who's not into the medium, like hardcore, it's like, oh, that's great. My kid could be Superman. They're not thinking, or as a young kid, I could be Superman. I could be Wonder Woman. I could be this. I could be that. And then you have a person who's much older now, who grew up like that's them, going like, well, wait a minute. No, you can't be. You can't be Superman. Why not? There's just that inherent disconnect. And then the corporate powers that be, because then you hear the argument, well, wait, you should put out your own shit. You have your own stuff. Just create new characters. Well, as someone that does, it's not easy. I've had comic shops tell me they'll never buy my stuff because of the kind of stuff that we do, and some that are super supportive. But it's not easy, right? And it costs a lot of dough. So it's not super easy to do, and then also get the support to continue to get it funded. And then if you've got the big corporates going, well, am I going to risk? And I'll tell you a story, and this will kind of, I guess, put the reality in. So I had a video game company really interested in making my stuff, and this is years ago, way before Black Panther came out, and suddenly people were like, wait a minute, we should have movies like this. Do we have one? Quickly get one. Make a universe real quick. I was talking to a video game company, big one, and I'm thinking, holy shit, they're gonna make my game. This is amazing. And then after multiple meetings with the president and everyone being excited, the number 2 pulls me to one side and said, we're not going to do this shit, right? I'm like, why not? He goes, because you're not a proven commodity, and there's no fucking way I'm going to risk X amount of $1 million making your game on an unproven commodity and on something that's diverse, that's not proven. So when you become like Harry Potter, he said, and also I'm not going to risk my beach house in Malibu and these 2 blondes I'm blah, blah, right?
Wow.
So I was like, it was kind of a reality wake-up call, like, oh, a multi-million-dollar corporation is not necessarily going to want to risk brand new character. They're going to at least want an established brand that they might say, if insert brand character is black or brown, we're still going to get the majority of the world, and we might get some more of those other folks too that can see themselves. It's a calculated risk, right? And so from the financial part, those are what the corporates are doing. From the general person that's not a ardent comic head or an ardent Star Wars fan, that it's just, hey, great, my kid could be Princess Leia or Luke Skywalker. That's great. They're not thinking as deep as the fan who is like, that's my cultural identity. That's how I, So when I see the from the extreme obvious racism to someone that might not necessarily is able to take a step back and have some kind of look at the other point of view perspective.
Yeah.
I very like being at conventions and talking to people that think they might, that might be like, if I see someone in, like some potentially racist get up, I'm like, hey, check this shit out. Full on representation. You're going to love this shit. Let me show you. I'm going to come into the booth. Then my friends are like, what the fuck? I'm like, no, I don't have a pitch. And then I tell them the story. And they're like, well, that story is actually pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. I find it, I didn't write that shit for them, but I think sometimes people need the opportunity to grow. Otherwise, I'm just condemning quickly. I mean, I know who my enemy is ASAP, and I'm all good. I just think it's easy to condemn and point fingers and to be brave with that shit without doing the same to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So,
it's funny. You actually struck a nerve with me that I was considering the fact that we had to be legitimized first as a commodity. And historically, that's always been, especially for, people of color, that's always been our thing, right? We have to prove ourselves to like this larger, norms in which we have to operate in and figure out, or we suffer and we have to create our own stuff and our own shit, as you said, right? Like to be able to hope and dream the way we want to be seen. It actually, so the last con that we had, we talked about Milestone, and like we showed a documentary called White Scripts, Black Supermen. It was about Black masculinity. And a lot of the connections there, I've been such a fan of Milestone, but even the tragedy of Milestone came down to egos and marketability. And now we're still talking about them after Black Panther and their viability as it pertains to like whether or not they can reboot this within DC's imprint, right? And continue on with this. But as you said, if you're not driving the car, if you're not in the driver's seat, it's a lot more difficult for you to kind of say, can we keep the story as is? Like, what is the problem? Because
I think that's very key, right? Who has the passion to tell nuanced stories that are relatable, that are multi-layered, right? So I think sometimes where you see, let's just take Superman as an example. If Superman is Black and he's Clark Kent and grows up on a farm with exactly the same situation, it's like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose, because we're now not getting into the cultural realities of what a Black man goes through, unless, and if he is on a farm in the middle of nowhere, his experiences are still going to be inherently different because he's a Black man. I mean, you can have some parallels and some similarities, sure, but I think the, again, the little kid is a little kid, but us as storytellers have a responsibility to honor culture, to honor. So one thing, is, so I was at school and I was in the boarding house, and I had a lot of experiences. So I remember having an experience where I was getting into a fight with this guy, and because I hit this guy, I was like held behind, whatever, right? And so I was 12 or 13, and this 18-year-old prefect, we call him, the older kids, whatever. He was monitoring me, and then he told me to come up, and he put me in a headlock. I was 12, 13, I couldn't do shit. And he was about to punch me in the face in the headlock, and he was like, name one reason I shouldn't fuck you up, blah, blah, blah. And it was just after summer break, and I saw he had a bit of a tan. He was like a reddish tan, and I was like, "Did you go on holiday?" He goes, "Yeah, I went on a fucking holiday." What did you do? Did you go to the beach? He goes, "Yeah, I went to the beach." Why did you go to the beach? I don't know. Sunbathe, swim. I was like, "Why did you sunbathe?" And he goes, "To get brown." And I was like, "Okay, so did your personality change when you became brown?" And he's like, so it was like a light bulb went off, and he was like, "All right, no one fucking touch this kid. He's under my protection,"
Wow.
Anyway, so years later, I tell that story to a lady I was dating, her mother was a Black Panther and a Black nationalist. And the mother was like, "That's a great story, and that's very clever and smart. However, that's wrong. It's we are not all the same. We are culturally different, and just because a kid got a tan doesn't change him. He's still a dick. it's the understanding of the cultural differences is something that people try and divide us with, rather than go, oh my God, that's something beautiful. Thank fucking goodness we can embrace and enjoy different cultures and learn and so on. And that has become a divisive tactic rather than I can, even on the most basic fundamentals, we get to like, oh, I drive this car, I listen to this music, I eat this food, and we go through. But when we see it on a human level, it's like, I like that fucking guy. Mm-hmm. So all that shit to say is, I think when we like Black James Bond is another controversial one. I like it because I like watching racists cry. It's funny to me. However, I would prefer it. My personal preference, for right or wrong, is I'd prefer a 006 or a different person who has his or her own upbringing and skill set and vibe and whatever, walks differently, fucks differently, like the whole thing. And I think culture does play a part in that. So I don't really trip if there's a Black James Bond. It's Idris Elba everyone wants, or a lot of people want, because I like racists crying. It's funny. Yeah. However, I don't know if it helps the narrative of people that are we haven't evolved yet contextually in these hundreds of years for people to have like a sense of take a step back and let me breathe.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. Well, I know we're nearing the end, but I wanted to ask you about the future of Stranger Comics. What's next? I heard some inklings here and there when I'm on your streams, and kind of just like where you're headed next.
Sure.
So can you share with us what do you see 5, even like a year, 5 years, 10 years down the line?
5 years from now, you'll never see me again. I'm going to be in the Bahamas, bro. No more cons. No. I think, so good news is I signed a wonderful deal with Prentice Penny, the showrunner of the TV show Insecure. He and I formed a new company together. He has a big overall deal at Onyx Disney. So we have a number of projects in the works to produce, including David Crownson's Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. I'm producing with Prentice and with David. And another project called Jason Wise with creator Urias, founder of Black Heroes Matter, producing that, making a comic with that as well. We didn't publish Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. That's David Crownson's own company, Kingwood. Other announcements I can't mention, but coming soon. But more kids books, more comic books, more stuff set in the world of Asunder, stuff set outside of the world of Asunder. More conventions, God help me, and just more stuff. So if you guys out there aren't completely, aren't repulsed by my accent and you want to give Stranger Comics a shot, and come and hear some, as my lead artist says, some shit poetry of mine, come and have a read.
So if people wanted to buy stuff or be supportive, what does that look like for?
I would say go to strangercomics.com, and here I'll read you one little passage, okay? Mm-hmm. One little passage from a Naibi and Dura comic. So here we go. This will give you an idea of how I write. Just one little blip. Footsteps to heaven are not always quiet. They leave prints in the earth for our spirit to see. That no matter how hard things may get, we rise. Mm. So that's a little glimpse into Naibi and Dura, Wrath of the Ancient, and I'll show you a couple of pages from that.
Wow.
So that's a little bit how I write. This one is actually done by Sheldon Mitchell out of Baltimore.
Wow, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, the Naibi and Dura comic is off the charts. Actually, this one, the Hellraiser one, that's on a Naibi and Dura issue 1. So if you want to read Naibi and Dura issue 1, there are only 75 copies of these. I think we probably have about 25 left.
Okay.
And it just dropped.
So as far as the Patreon is concerned, because I'm gonna drop that as well and let people know about the Patreon. What does that look like for someone?
Patreon is amazing, folks. So if you guys want to read everything I have digitally for free, it's just $5 a month, which is crazy. And that's umpteen comic books and kids books and Pathfinder role-playing games. If you play D&D and Pathfinder, we have a role-playing game. Get all that shit for free, $5 a month. And you get 20% off the website. So those rare exclusives that are a bit pricey, you literally get 20% off any exclusive. If you back it at $25 a month or higher, we literally send you a comic every single month, shipping for free. We got, high levels version and trade, metals, hoodies, t-shirts, all that stuff. You start getting shit for free, and early access, private Zooms, which sounds a bit sneaky, but it's safe private Zooms. So yeah. Oh yeah, here's a Nibendura. Here's a really good one on the Hive exclusive too.
Oh my gosh, those are gorgeous. Sebastian, are you trying to get into everybody's pockets, because this is
trying. Oh yeah, and this was an exclusive we did with Nearly Auto. You've got the blades there. If you're a Black Panther fan, we only have a few of these left. We're in create a copy only versions. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know what the advantage of recording this is, that I get to jump in before anybody else. So I'm sorry, y'all. Hopefully you can jump on. I know you're
Stranger Reserve. If you guys are collectors, go to our website, strangercomics.com, click on the Stranger Reserve in the comic collector section. But go to Stranger Reserve to start with. That's where you'll find a lot of our rare stuff. So
my friend Soul, who's also a part of our trio, or I would say our quad group, we're doing a podcast. He's going to go nuts over that, and so will a whole bunch of other friends as well, Miss Keys. But yeah, thank you for the exclusives. That's so cool. I'll make sure to jump on there fairly quickly so that way I can get my edition. So I just wanted to say thank you first and foremost. I know Stranger Con happens pretty frequently. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know it's happening as we speak.
It's happening as we speak, folks. Yeah, if you go to the website, strangercomics.com, click the banner to join Stranger Con. It's on YouTube Live. I'll be yapping all day. We do it like 2 or 3 times a year. I'm sitting in front of a computer for essentially 10 hours solid. With guests coming on, exclusives dropping, all sorts of fun stuff, tips and tricks for folks that want to learn how to write, all sorts of, it's just a great, great day. If you guys don't make StrangerCon, go to the website if you want to pick up some stuff. Look at our book bundle deals. We often have great book bundle deals just for first-time readers. And I do go on Instagram Live every Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. I talk a lot of shit and a lot of good exclusives. People have called it Thirsty Thursdays now. A lot of excited people in the chat. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah, so Stranger Comics on Instagram. You can follow us. TikTok, I'm now doing that. Facebook, all that shit. So
that's awesome. Yeah, Thursdays are amazing. I don't know how you still have energy by the end of the day, so to speak. So that's really cool. I wanted to thank you, my friend, 1,000% for saying yes to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Again, we'll be doing this quarterly, so this is going to be a continued thing in our virtual platform through AirMeet. I would love to have you come back, even as just a con goer and just hanging out with some folks.
I love it.
People would freak out, but with all the gratitude that I can push your way and all the positivity,
thank you.
People, make sure that you get on the Patreon. That actually sounds amazing, and the exclusivity of it is actually pretty cool. And you're saving some money as well. So get on the Stranger Comics bandwagon before it's too late. He already told you in 5 years he's going to be on some island somewhere. So make this shit happen right now so that you can take advantage of it. But Sebastian Jones, everybody give him a round of applause and make sure that you are following him. We appreciate you and everything that you're doing for the community, but most importantly, thank you for sticking to your guns and now you get to reap the rewards of what your vision was. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And we're going to go on to the next part of our conference. Again, make sure that you follow Stranger Comics. Make sure you buy their swag. We actually have their virtual booth in the background, so we'll have that set up as well. So you'll have all their tags, their emails to be able to contact Sebastian and the team. So thank you again, Sebastian, and thank you all for hanging out with us for this hour. Peace.